In at number 10, we have got the Uranus, and although this creature is just viewed as a creature which is going to buff all of your creatures in a boss fight, don't know why I said creature that many times in a sentence, but either way, this thing is obviously mainly used to buff creatures in a boss fight with its courage roar, but it also just works as a pretty decent carnivorous mount, and you can actually do bosses with this dinosaur, which most people probably wouldn't consider doing, and maybe it's not the best option. If you go to something like a Rex, you probably have a higher success rate, but you could definitely do it with something like the UT, and you can have a pretty decent success rate nonetheless. And actually using a UT in some cases can be a lot better than the Rex, because they're much more mobile creatures and you may just like them more, and if you breed them and you get some really good ones, they can be really good for that use. They're just general great meat harvesters and hide harvesters as well, because they kill loads of creatures. And obviously you can use their fear roar as well, not really in boss scenarios, but you can kind of use them as a sort of turret thing, that like if someone's coming to raid your base on a Pteranodon, you can always just fear roar those things away is what I meant to say, and then from that you can essentially disable them from raiding you, which is actually a pretty decent strat if you've never tried it. Next up, we have got the Baselo, and this creature can actually make oil in its inventory, which is actually a pretty useful thing. And you know, you might just use this thing as a caving creature, but it is also a pretty good creature for exploring just the general ocean biome, which is actually quite an integral part of the game in some ways, as obviously it's ocean caving, but also for a lot of resources you need to explore, you know, get loads of oil and silica pearls and black pearls and all of that. And I know they do have a depth limit, but still that doesn't really hinder them, and again they are immune to jellyfish and electric eels. I say it a lot on the channel, and that is something huge about these creatures. And they also do have an X variant, so there's an even better version of these creatures out there, and they can also make little rainbows as well when they jump out of the water, which is actually quite cute. I know it doesn't really affect their abilities and their uses, but you know, just a nice cool feature which might brighten up your day. Next up, we have got the Thea, and this creature has to be here as it is just so good at gathering all kinds of resources, which obviously makes it a very versatile creature in all kinds of anything really, and especially that fiber gathering, as fiber is one of the most essential resources in the game, and you'll pretty much struggle to find a better creature than a Thea which can actually gather fiber. And obviously you can use a sickle, or you can use a moss chop, so that's another great creature for you to use for this. The Thea just does it better, and it's pretty easy and accessible to tame. You just have to be level 69.
Nice.
That joke gets me every single time, but you know, it's actually pretty hard to find a really decent fiber gatherer, and this is a really decent fiber gatherer, but obviously it can gather all kinds of berries, wood, thatch, and all of that. And it's also pretty decent for the dragon boss fight because it's a herbivore, so it doesn't get affected by the dragon's fire attack, which is particularly lethal to carnivores and not very friendly to them whatsoever. So you know, that's where the benefit of this comes in, but sadly you can't just use meat to heal them. You have to use something like sweet vegetable cake, and that is frankly quite expensive, so that is a downside. But apart from that, they really are great creatures. In at number 7, we have got the Bionic, and this creature is just so good at caving, but it is also great at several other things as well. But the caving does just make it inherently versatile in itself, because being able to do caves and all kinds of caves and travel around many situations in caves is inherently versatile, and obviously it's a really great underwater mount as well, so that is again another really great use for this creature. And they do obviously have that spin attack, so they can stun creatures up to the size of a megalodon, which does play huge benefit in their ability. And if you do have one of those things, I definitely recommend you getting one of these things into the water, not just using it predominantly as a land creature, although you probably will predominantly use it as a land creature. Get it in the water and you get its feet wet and actually use it in the water, and you'll probably find that you really like this creature in that environment as well. Yeah, maybe it doesn't have the greatest amount of speed like some of the newer creatures out there, but considering it spawns on the island, you really can't go wrong with this creature. So that is why I put the Barry in at the number 7 spot, and you can see there that Megalodon is just completely frozen, so if you're in a pinch and need to get out of a sticky situation, you can always do it with the Barry. Next up, we have got the Rhinogatha. Personally, I don't really like this creature because I find it's a little bit too overpowering in what it can do, but I know loads of you out there really like this creature, and I'm not going to diss it for its versatility, even though it's not a favourite of mine, so I am going to put it on this list, although you might not quite agree with my next choice, which is my preferred option, and I will say it, albeit this is the kind of better creature in my opinion. It's just I don't enjoy using it, which is why I put it lower on the list, but still, this creature is full of very exciting opportunities. This thing can pick up creatures up to the size of a Rex, and can pick up Paracers, pick up all kinds of really big creatures, which is inherently a really great use in its own thing. Cryos do exist though, not on ASA at the moment, so it's the only way of really getting those big creatures around, but on normal Ark, you can make do with Cryos, and you'll definitely have loads of them by the time you get the saddle for this thing, or even attempts to tame one, because it is quite a difficult, lengthy process. Pretty much just a rip-off of the Reaper Tame, but you know, it is the same game publishers and the same game makers, so you can't really call it a rip-off, let's say, because I just said that earlier. You kind of maybe call it a rehashing. It's a little bit different, of course, because the way you get 100% effectiveness is with all of those resources which are just on the screen there, and if you feel like it's too unnecessary to read all of those, then it's probably too unnecessary to get all of those to actually get 100% effectiveness. And you're not bringing this thing to a boss fight. Don't really think that is very useful or worth your time. I just recommend saving the highest level when you can, and you don't need that 100% effectiveness. It's fine. You can just wait it out and you'll be good. But if you really are a perfectionist, obviously I'm not going to stop you from doing that. Also, these creatures are really great at raiding bases. Like, they deal a heck of a lot of damage. They're really quick flyers, they have a lot of carry weight, so you can transport a lot of metal around with them, and they are just inherently really big, beefy creatures, but not as big as maybe you would expect. Obviously, these things don't have a platform saddle like the Quetzal, so that still does have a slight gain over this thing, but it is a really versatile creature, although personally I don't really like it and kind of what it is, the creature. I think it's too overpowering. I'll still admit it's a very versatile creature. Now, in at number 5, we've got the Argy, and this creature just had to be here for me above the Rhinogatha because I think it's a superior creature. It fits into the game more, and I really like its regen ability, the fact that its saddle acts as a portable smithy, and it really seems to fit into the game, and it's a pretty easy tame as well. Not saying that the Rhinogatha tame being really difficult like devalues it as a creature. No, it's a much higher level, so you would expect a harder tame method, but still I think again that does kind of make the Argy a lot more accessible, albeit yes, the Argy can't pick up anything like Rexes and all of that. I think that is personally a little bit stupid. I should really stop ranting on about the Rhinogatha, because I know those of you out there really like it, so I'm going to stop that and I'm just going to talk about the Argy, because I don't really think I should be dissing your opinions, although I should express mine. I think I've done it enough, haven't I? Either way, the Argy can pick up a wealth of creatures. Obviously it does have that regen buff when it kills a dead thing. Well, it's alive and then it kills it, and then it's dead, and then it eats the dead thing, and then it gets the regen buff. And then it has obviously a portable smithy as its saddle, which is useful because this thing's really, it's got really great weight stats, so you can get around really quickly and easily just in the general area, and then from that you can take loads of metal to and fro wherever you're going, and yeah, that does play a huge benefit in your advantage. So the Argy in at number 5. Next up, we have got the Shadowmane, and this is just one of those creatures where it's so densely packed with abilities, it kind of has to make the list, or this list just really isn't right. The Shadowmane has the hydration buff. The Shadowmane can really jump to insane heights that no flyer is safe, and also on top of that it does have the pack buff. It can go invisible, and it's a really great swimmer. It's just really, really mobile. Again, can jump extremely high into the air. It can also charge up its damage as well, doing even more. It's just such a great boss creature, and just great for general travel, mobility, general combat, PvP scenarios, PvE scenarios, you name it, this thing is really good for it. The only real downside is the lack of armor from a saddle, but they have natural armor, so I guess that kind of accounts for it. It's not quite as bad as a Wyvern, where they just have absolutely nothing at all. And as you can see there, it's so good underwater, and actually Quite a lot of people demote it for that and they just use it for combat, but it's a pretty good underwater caving creature too, and somewhat of a Baryonyx replacement, although I tend to prefer the Baryonyx just a little bit for those scenarios. At number 3, we have got the Desmodus Draculae, and this thing is just, it's one of those creatures where it's, maybe it doesn't have the most amount of abilities, let's say. Obviously it does have the gliding ability and it can farm blood bags, but it has really unique abilities that makes it so versatile, and obviously that Sanguine Elixir allows for creatures to be tamed so easily, as 30% of it is done right there with just a click of a button, and the blood bag farming is invaluable really, because the blood bags were just such a pain to get before this creature came out. Obviously it's tamed with blood bag, so you still need to do that quite lengthy process to get your first one, but just get a really low level one for your first one, get the lowest you can, and then use that to farm loads of blood bags, and then get the highest level that you can. That's my recommended strat anyway. For the Desmodus, these things can also go invisible at night time as well, but stupidly I was in the Wastelands biome and it never goes nighttime there, and you can't really change that, so that's good for me choosing the perfect biome for this creature. In number 2, we've got the Blood Stalker, and this creature, I feel like people diss it for what I really use it for, and maybe some people will think, well, the Shadowman and Desmodus are more versatile, this is just a travel mount, and you can't really use it for bosses and all of that, and albeit, yes you can't, but it is a really exceptional underwater mount, which is why I put it here, and it's actually my favourite underwater mount, with no questions whatsoever. Sorry about the yawning there, it's quite late in the evening as I'm recording this, but yeah, these things are my absolute favourite underwater creatures, no questions asked. They're so quick, they're so easy to take in the water, they can skim over the top of the water, which the Shadowman can't do. I know the Maywing can, but the Maywing's not on this list because it's only really great for travelling, and yes, that thing with all its breeding abilities essentially acting as a portable feeding trough, and it can carry babies around the place. Yeah, it's useful for that and versatile for that, but personally I think all the creatures on this list do excel a little bit further than that. That's just kind of maybe genuinely what you would expect, just 2 abilities at a minimum. But yeah, this creature, you can gather loads of hexagons with it on Gen 1. I know that point's probably going to come back to bite me actually with the Maywing when you look at some of these other creatures on the list, but I just don't really think the Maywings should be on the list, but I guess it got an honourable mention spot here, you could say. But either way, these things are capable of getting loads of hexagons on Gen 1. They're really fast travelling creatures, of course. They're really great underwater, really quick. Obviously you take them with blood bags, so easy to get with the Desmodus, you might as well just do that and then tame yourself a really high level Blood Stalker, because it will be saving you the most time, unless you're just using creatures on Gen 1 or Gen 2, whatever map you're taming this thing on, if you want to go the more authentic route. And finally, in at number 1, we have got the Deinonychus, and this creature can deal bleed damage to bosses, which inherently makes it really versatile for every boss, apart from the bosses on Extinction, of course, because of that bleed ability. It's just so useful for getting all of that done, and its abilities are quite versatile as well. It's a really great travel mount. This thing does take no full damage whatsoever, which is a pretty rare occurrence on any kind of dinosaur, so it's nice to see. And the fact that it can latch onto creatures and just rip them to shreds with that bleed ability truly is a sight to be seen, and again, to my knowledge, no other creature can do this, and no one has seemed to have questioned me on it over the however long I've been doing top 10s, months and months now. It's coming up to maybe a year at this point. I don't know. No one has questioned me on this, so I'm pretty sure, I'm perfectly confident that it is true. Let's say 99%. These things also do have a pack buff as well, which again is going to boost them in those boss scenarios, and they have a heck of a lot of mobility on top of just them not being able to take full damage, because, would you rather have the small Titanosaur that can get around everywhere, or the big Titanosaur that just can't take full damage? You're probably going to go for the smaller agile one, because I don't know why I use a Titanosaur there, but either way, yeah, this thing could parkour up walls. That's actually quite useful. Maybe not as elegant as a solution as the Thyla, because those things can just kind of walk up them, run up them as you wish, but it does the same thing. It just in some ways is a little bit more janky, but you get used to it, and actually after a while it kind of ends up being a little bit better. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and as always, comment down below what is the most versatile Ark Tame, as I want to know your thoughts, and also, do you agree with this list? If not, comment down your top 10, or just your most favourite versatile creature, and I'll see you later.